Harry W. Robinson preached his heart out night after night in a series of 10 meetings in Alabama. He was convinced that the Seventh-day Adventist message needed to be heard. The church put out flyers. They spent on advertising. They did everything they could to get as many people to hear this message as possible. Young Edward, he came every night and just listened, spellbound by the words of the preacher. One night, the preacher made an appeal for baptism, and nobody moved. Nobody stirred. But he wanted to go up. He wanted to make his decision for Jesus, to accept Jesus and be baptized. Finally, he overcame his fear, and he went up to the front, and he gave his life to Jesus, and he decided to be baptized. At the end of the meetings, nobody else responded. It was only young Edward. He was the only man, the only person that was baptized at these meetings. You know, we pour out all our time, money, and effort to reach as many people as we can. And sometimes only one person responds. Sometimes nobody responds. Well, I'm going to give a few tips today, a few evangelism tips. Did you want to sit over there? We shall be at things fine, or yeah, it's coming in here. Still stay weird hard. Okay. So I'm just going to share some tips. This is part one. I'm going to share 4 tips today, and then in 2 weeks, I'm going to share another 4 tips on how to reach people, how to reach out to people. Number 1 is have an experience of your own. If someone comes up to me and says, "Hey, can I have $1,000? What do you think my answer will be? Well, no, because I don't have $1,000 to give. I mean, if I had $1,000 extra money and stuff, then I could give it to you. You may as well ask me for $1 million, because I can't give you 1,000. I can't give you $1 million. It doesn't matter. If you don't have something, then you can't give it to others. So if you don't have a relationship with Jesus in the first place, then you can't share Jesus with others. That's the most important point here. I'm going to spend the longest time on this point, and the other 3 points are much shorter. So I did 9 years of evangelism all over North America, and I used to love debating religion and spirituality. You know, the Adventists, we're so good at debating the Bible because our doctrines are solid. They're very difficult to argue against. So I would love to prove what happens to you when you die from the Bible, and that Saturday is the Sabbath. And I used to love arguing with people and debating with people. So I won a lot of arguments, but I didn't win any people. Then when I was truly converted, I realized something. You can argue back and forth. Evidence for Christianity, against Christianity, for evolution, against evolution, for creation. You can argue all these things. You can argue doctrine all day. You can argue doctrine for years and years and years. But I realized that being right doesn't actually win people. You can win arguments and not win people to Jesus. Let me give you some other things that sometimes we argue about. Sometimes people ask me the question, well, is this a salvation issue? Or is that a salvation issue? They'll say things like, is jewelry a salvation issue? Am I going to not go to heaven because I wear jewelry? What about being vegetarian or vegan? Or what about the length of my skirt? Or how I dress? What about my tattoos? Or what about wearing a tie? I remember there were a small group of people that actually argued, well, a tie is adornment. It's not necessary to clothe yourself, so you shouldn't wear it. And people made a big deal about whether a man should wear a tie or not, or even a tie pin. What about swimming on the Sabbath? Well, that's a salvation issue because it's the Sabbath, and you shouldn't swim on the Sabbath or bike ride. Video games. Maybe I shouldn't play video games. I don't play video games on the Sabbath, but I shouldn't ever play video games or read certain books. Are these salvation issues hell, or are they not? Competitive sports. I remember listening to debates about whether Christians should engage in competitive sports or not. There's so many issues out there, so many questions, and people are arguing and debating about all these things. And one person could appear to be right because he's more intellectual and has more information, has more scientific evidence for or against. But friends, this is not the spreading of the gospel. These are distractions. So let me set it straight now what salvation is. There's only one salvation issue. And it's not behavior. And how do I know it's not behavior? Well, let me prove it from the Bible that behavior is not what saves you. There will be Sabbath keepers who are lost. Do you believe that there are going to be Sabbath keepers that are lost? I believe it. The Pharisees were Sabbath keepers and they crucified Jesus. There are going to be non-Sabbath keepers that are saved. The Pharisees and the disciples, for that matter, they ate right. They had the right diet. They had the right Sabbath. They had the right commandments. They had the right doctrines. But they were lost. The Pharisees, anyways, they rejected Jesus. They crucified him. There's only one salvation issue, and it's not even doctrine. Because we know that the Pharisees had the right doctrines. And yet they were not completely right in all their doctrines. You can have the wrong doctrines and be right or wrong with Christ. Let me prove that again. So, what did the Pharisees think that Jesus, the Messiah, was going to do? They thought that he was going to overthrow the Romans. Yes, the Messiah is here. Well, no, he can't be the Messiah because he's not talking about overthrowing the Romans. So we don't like him. We don't like this Messiah. But who else had those wrong doctrines?
Sure.
The disciples. What did the disciples believe about the Messiah? They believed that the Messiah, Jesus, was going to overthrow the Romans. They also had a wrong doctrine. Wrong doctrines don't make you lost. So here the Pharisees and the disciples, they had all the right behaviors, and they had a very important wrong doctrine about what the Messiah was going to do. And the Pharisees were lost because they rejected Jesus, but the disciples were eventually saved. So what made the difference if it was not doctrine and it was not behavior?
Relationship.
It was relationship. The disciples had a loving, healthy relationship with Jesus.
No.
You see, so this is what it is. This is the one thing that we need to be saved. Salvation is not a denomination. It's not a set of rules. It's not a set of beliefs. It's not a creed. True religion is not a lifestyle. It's not even a lifestyle. And it's not being right. It is a relationship with Jesus. Salvation is a person, and that is Jesus. So why do we keep the commandments then? If the commandments don't save us, why do we keep the commandments?
Well,
Because we love God. Right, and it's even more simple than that. God gave us the commandments because it's healthy for us. It's good for us. He says, Cal, don't lie to people because I want you to have healthy relationships. Be faithful to your wife because I want you to be happy in your marriage. Don't take other people's property and don't harm anyone because I want you to be happy. And I want you to bless those around you. It's really very simple. God gives us the commandments for our own benefit. He gives us the Sabbath so that we can live long, healthy lives. All of the commandments make us healthy and happy and whole. And remember, we studied that in Bible study, that those are synonyms. Healthy, happy, and holy. They're almost synonyms. You can use them almost interchangeably. I like what Desire of Ages says. A spirit contrary to the Spirit of Christ would deny him. Whatever the profession, men may deny Christ by evil speaking, by foolish talking, by words that are untruthful or unkind. They may deny him by shunning life's burdens, by the pursuit of sinful pleasure. They may deny him by conforming to the world, by uncourteous behavior, by the love of their own opinions, by justifying self, by cherishing doubt, borrowing trouble, and dwelling in darkness. In all these ways, they declare that Christ is not in them. You see, all these bad behaviors and bad doctrines, bad beliefs, selfishness and pride, they all come from not having a relationship with Jesus. That is the root of everything, is having a relationship with him. So here's a piece of advice. When people want to argue, you can argue with them a little bit. Just give them the evidences that you believe point to Jesus, point to Christianity, point to creationism, right? Just argue with them a little bit, give them a few evidences. But if they want to keep arguing, then stop. Stop arguing and challenge people instead. Say, hey, listen, we can argue all day and all night and for weeks, and then we can argue for years about this. But I want to challenge you to do something. Try talking to God. Ask him, because you're not going to get all your answers from me. Try talking to him. Try getting to know him as a person. Instead of approaching me and approaching this religion as evidence and arguments, approach it like it's a person and try to get to know God. And the person who honestly looks for God and talks to him, to that person, God is going to talk back. That's what he did for me. It was during COVID, I was in Northern Ontario working on the railroad, and it was just me and the rails, small towns, wilderness. And my adjacent colleague, he was about 2 hours away. So I saw him only once every 2 weeks. My boss, I called him on the phone probably about once a week. And this was during COVID, so everything was shut down. I was so isolated, I had no one to talk to except God. And I was honest with God. I said, God, I don't want to follow you. I know I'm supposed to. I know I should. But I don't even want to. I like my life. I like my lifestyle. I just want to live the way I want to. I want nothing to do with you. So if you want to save me, then you're going to have to do it. Because I want nothing to do with it. I'm only talking because I have no one else to talk to. And that was an honest prayer. We need to be honest with God and really tell him where our hearts are. And to make a long story short, he talked back. And here I am today, 4.5 years later. 5.5 years later. So this is point number one. Is you can't share Jesus if you don't have him in your own life. Develop a relationship with Jesus yourself. And if you're unsure about your relationship with Jesus, then talk to him. Talk to him honestly and say, God, I want to have a real experience with you. I want to know if you really exist. I want to know if you really care for me. So I need you to tell me, I need you to talk to me. And he will. Maybe not right away, but keep praying that prayer. And he is going to give you a real experience with himself. Okay, well, let's go to number 2. So again, that was the longest part, the most important. Number 2, 3, and 4, they're a lot shorter. Number 2 on how to really share Jesus with others is be conspicuous. Be conspicuous. And this is what I mean. So I was reading my Bible. I was a new Christian, and I had just graduated from college, and I'm an electronics technician. And I'm like, I want to share Jesus with others, but I don't know how. I'd never given a Bible study before, never preached, nothing like that. I didn't know how to share Jesus. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to bring my Bible to work and just read it during lunch while I'm eating. So it was very conspicuous. There's this young guy at work with his Bible on the lunchroom table while he's eating. And it attracted attention. It only attracted one person's attention, Well, actually two. So there was a Chinese Christian there, and she said, "Oh, you're a Christian." And so we would sit beside each other during lunch. But then there was this other man in there, and he came in one day and he said, "Oh, you're reading your Bible, so you must be a Christian." And I said, "Yeah, I'm a Christian." And he said, "Well, okay, answer me this." And he asked me a question. I don't exactly remember what it was, but I was able to come up with the right answer. But even before that, like, he wouldn't even let me answer. First he said, "Well, answer me this." And he asked me this question. And he's like, "You know what, go ask your priest." And then he walks away rudely when I was about to answer it. And he realized that. So he came to me the next break and he said, "Okay, you think you have the answer to that question? Well, tell me what it is." And I was able to give him a reasonable biblical answer. And he's like, okay, that's a great answer. And then he asked me another question. He said, "So you're a Christian. You keep the Ten Commandments?" I said, "Yeah, I keep the Ten Commandments." "You probably don't keep the Ten Commandments." "I'm sure you don't keep the Ten Commandments." "I'm pretty sure you don't keep the Fourth Commandment." I said, "Yeah, I keep the Fourth Commandment. I try to keep all the Ten Commandments." And he said, "Then why do you go to church on Sunday?" I said, "I don't go to church on Sunday." And he looks at me and he says, "When do you go to church?" I go, "Well, on Saturday. Saturday's the Sabbath. It's the seventh day of the week." But he says, "Wait a minute. What religion are you?" And I said, "I'm a Seventh-day Adventist." And his eyes light up. He said, "You're a Seventh-day Adventist?" And then he turns to the Christian sitting beside me, the lady, and says, "This boy is a Seventh-day Adventist. If you have any questions on the Bible, you ask him, because he's going to know all of it." Imagine that. This guy, he wasn't even a Christian. He wasn't even a Seventh-day Adventist. But he studied many different religions, and he thought that the Adventists were the most solid of all the religions that he had ever encountered. And this all started because all I did was read my Bible during lunch. You aren't being conspicuous. It's a little bit different now because we have our phones, and I have my Bible and my sermon notes on my phone. So when I'm on my phone, people can't tell I'm reading my Bible. But I really have to make it a point to carry a hard copy of my Bible so that people might start up a conversation. I know a former Hindu who became a Seventh-day Adventist, and I give Bible studies to him. He was eventually baptized, and now he's the AV guy at his church. And the reason he started all that, the Bible studies and everything in the first place, is because he had a colleague, and he found her on Facebook. They were friends at work, and they saw each other on Facebook, and he saw her profile description or something. It said something about Jesus. He was like, "Oh, that's interesting. Who is this Jesus?" Remember, he's Hindu. So he believes in a multitude of gods. And Hindus are actually easier to reach than most of us think. And it's because they believe all the gods. So when you invite a Hindu person to have Bible studies, they're like, "Oh yeah, I will learn about this God, Jesus. I'll learn about all of the gods, but if you're going to teach about Jesus, yeah, let me see what he's about." And he eventually converted from Hinduism. He became a Christian. And it's all because of a colleague's profile. And he decided to come to her church, which was our church, the Seventh-day Adventist Church. You can do all sorts of things to be conspicuous. We have all sorts of Christian clothing. I have shorts that my wife bought me and has a big cross on the thigh right there. There's a conversation starter made. Maybe you have a desk at your workplace. You can put some Christian paraphernalia. You do all sorts of things like that. So be conspicuous. That's point number 2. Number 3, share material. It's very easy to share material. So I used to work for a TJX warehouse. Great big warehouse. And we had so many temp workers. In fact, I think I was a temp worker at the time. So we had a lot of people coming in and out of that warehouse. And I would try to reach people as much as possible. There's this one guy named Adam. I don't even remember if that was his real name. Maybe I made that name up for the story, just for privacy's sake, but we'll call him Adam. Every day he would he would just show off about the parties and the drugs and the alcohol and all these, just his party lifestyle. And I would just nod and smile and nod and smile. And I would wait for an opening. How am I going to reach Adam with the gospel? He seems very worldly. All he does is drink and party with his friends. How am I going to reach him? I didn't argue with him. I just said, oh, okay, yeah, there's for you. Yeah, well, no, I didn't do that this weekend. I did other stuff. I went to church this weekend. Yeah, so we just got to know each other a little bit. And then he said something that set me off. And I'm like, there's no way I can let this pass. This poor fellow who's this young guy, he's just walking to perdition. He's on the way to destruction with his lifestyle. And this is what he said. He said, you know, my girlfriend is thinking of getting into Wicca. She wants to be a witch. And I had enough. I'm like, oh no, like this poor guy, he's on the wrong road. And now his girlfriend is going to become a witch. Thinking this about this is, I feel so bad for this guy. I got to do something. So I said, brother, whatever you do, don't let her get into witchcraft. Don't let just, like, I had enough. I'm like, I have to say something to help him. I said, that is demonic. You're going to be like playing with Satan. Satan is going to come into your life. You're going to become demon possessed. Like, whatever you just stay away from that stuff. And he's like, wait a minute, what do you mean? Like God and Satan and angels and demons? Like, what is this? What are you talking about? But then he had all these questions. He wanted me to tell him more. Now, I didn't know how to give Bible studies. I didn't know how to preach. I didn't know how to share Jesus. So I said, here, take this DVD. And this was back before YouTube. We had DVDs and CDs to share with people. So I gave him a DVD. It was either Sean Boonstra or Doug Batchelor. I don't remember. But I gave him the DVD. I said, here, listen to this. Tell me what you think. And so he went home that night. He listened to it. He gave it back to me. Next thing, he's like, man, that was amazing. And I said, okay, well, thank you very much. Here's the second one. I gave him the second one. But here's another tip. Don't give them the whole thing. Here, watch these 26 videos. No, that's going to overwhelm them. Or when we give Bible studies, don't give it, here, read these 26 Bible studies. No, you give them one at a time. And you give them one so they're not overwhelmed. So I give them the first. I said, give him the second. And then he may have skipped a few days. He didn't watch it yet, but then he watched it. And I give him the third, the fourth, and he would return the ones to me that he watched, and then I give him another one. He went through the entire series. And at the end of it, he said, Cal, I am now a Christian. I have given my life to Jesus. I hadn't given a Bible study at all. Not to that other workplace. Not to Adam at this workplace. All I had to share was material. Be conspicuous and share material. It was really that simple. You know, it's even easier today because we have YouTube. All you have to do is get their phone number, and you text them a YouTube video. And you can make your own videos too. You can make your testimony on YouTube or something, which I've done for myself also. You could say things like, hey, I saw this really cool video. Can I share it with you? Well, what's your number? Okay, and then we'll test it. Hey, so-and-so, this is Cal. Here's that video. Copy and paste the video when they have it. And you know why? The other reason I get people's numbers is because if you have each other's numbers, or one of you has the other person's number, then it becomes a Facebook suggestion, a Facebook friend suggestion. And then you can add them on Facebook. And guess what I have on my Facebook page? I have religious material that's going to point people to Jesus. It's so easy to share material with people these days. You don't even have to give sermons or Bible studies or anything. All you have to do is share sermons on YouTube. We don't even have to give hardware anymore. It's so easy to share people, to add more on Facebook. No, people are afraid to add people on Facebook. And yes, it's true. There's so many scams out there. People wanting to or pretending to be romantically involved, interested in you, and or they're fake. They just want your money. Or people saying, hey, I'm from Bitcoin. I'm from this agency. I can make you money. Or maybe you need a lot. Like, there are all sorts of scams, right? And I get why people are afraid of adding friends on Facebook. But you know what? We need to think about it as an opportunity to reach out to people. So I add like everyone and their dog on Facebook. Just if they're a friend suggestion with like more than 10 friends or something, then I add them. If there's someone that's even vaguely familiar, I don't even remember where I met them or seen them before, then I add them anyways. Because then when they see my page, like, oh, what's this video? What's that video? What's this creationist video? What's this thing about Jesus? It gives people an opportunity to get to know you. And most of all, get to know Jesus. Okay, so my fourth one is when you can, especially with people that you're more close to, like workmates, schoolmates, bring it up in conversation. At my last workplace, I was really able to do this a lot. During COVID, because this vaccine mandate, that came up a lot. And I would say things like, there's going to be another mandate one day. It's not going to be a vaccine mandate. It's going to be a Sunday mandate. And then I would be able to explain in 2 minutes or maybe 5 minutes what the book of Revelation is today. It's mark the beast, seal of God, just a short version, of course. And if they're interested, then they can ask me more questions. I can give them Bible studies. I even said one time at my workplace, did you know that Satan will counterfeit Jesus' return? And they're like, what are you talking about? And I was able to explain it a little bit. So when it comes up, like during COVID, the vaccine mandate, well, you can bring up religious themes, spiritual things. Hey, did you know there's going to be a Sunday mandate one day? It's really not hard to bring these up. Sometimes when you meet someone new and you have to work with them or go to school with them or something, like one of my buddies, he said to me one time trying to get to know me, he said, so what are you into? Well, it was easy. I said, I studied the Bible. Are you religious? And he's like, no, but my wife is. And then I'm like, okay, there's an opening. So I pulled out the Great Controversy. It's good to carry that book with you or even other books. I pulled out the Great Controversy and this is something that she will really enjoy. I know it. So there's an opening. I brought it up in conversation and I shared it to her. So let's review. The first 4 tips I have on sharing Jesus with others. Have a conversion experience of your own and ask God for it if you don't have it already. It's number 1. Number 2, be conspicuous. Read your Bible in public. Put stuff on your desk at work. Number 3, share material. And it's so easy, you can just text it to people, YouTube videos and stuff. Number 4, bring it up in conversation when it comes up. Where's our country going? Well, I know where it's going. I can tell you. Book of Revelation can tell you. So bring it up in conversation. So let's go back to that story I started with. Harry Robinson preached his heart out night after night in a series of tent meetings in Alabama. And at the end of the meetings, how many people were baptized again? Only one person, young Edward. That young man who walked forward alone, his name was Edward Earl Cleveland. I don't know if you have heard his name before. We know him more familiarly as E.E. Cleveland. History remembers him not for being the only one baptized in a little tent meeting in Alabama, but as one of the greatest evangelists the Seventh-day Adventist Church has ever known. He would grow up to preach on almost every continent, in Africa, in the Caribbean, across the United States. Wherever he went, stadiums were filled. At one campaign in 1966 in Port of Spain, Trinidad, over 4,000 people were baptized. Over his lifetime, it's estimated he led tens of thousands to Christ. But he never forgot that first step, to that lonely walk to the front. He used to say, never underestimate what God can do with one decision for him. So when you wonder if your effort, your invitation, or your testimony is making a difference, just remember E.E. Cleveland, and one soul can change the world.